In September of last year, I started a series of videos documenting my progress creating a comic from start to finish. And in that first video, I even said something along the lines of wanting to finish the comic in about a month's time, if not a little bit longer, which, great goal, 2017 Brookes. So what happened? The third and last installment of that video series was late November of last year. Did I just give up or something? No, not at all. In fact, I've got some really great news for you. I just want to update you though, in that time since late November of last year up until now, especially because I think some of it can be helpful for you in your own comic or creative project pursuits. So where I left things, the comic was scripted, it was thumbnailed, that's the tiny drawings, it was sketched, that's the more final drawings, even some of the pages were rendered and finished. So what went wrong? Well, let's follow the timeline from late November. The first thing that slowed me down was admittedly self-inflicted. So we're in December at this point, and I decided to do a daily Star Wars character illustration project. And that ended up taking up the bulk of my available time. And anyone who's done a daily project of any sorts, like Inktober or anything that's a substantial amount of work per day, can attest to the fact that that quickly becomes an all-consuming project of your available time, basically. And so instead of being able to do that quickly and then continue working on the comic, I thought I was going to be able to stream the process of creating these Star Wars characters on Twitch, because I was getting into that seriously. I'm actually planning on getting back into Twitch pretty substantially coming up here. But I was traveling a lot in December, so there was a lot of different factors, but overall, comic progress was fairly little. I just took on more than I could, beginner's mistake, and the comic suffered. If I had known in December how easy I had it compared to this past year, I would not have taken on that illustration project. Moving on to January, this is something that I wanted to keep private for the better part of this year. I didn't want to air it. I didn't want to make it look like I was shifting blame or anything other than supportive, really, because I am. But it was actually my wife who wanted me to tell you, to tell my followers, to tell my audience of people, bring them up to speed, basically, so that things make sense, because clearly I've not been outputting at the same capacity than I had been before. So in January, my wife, whose health has been pretty rough over the last few years, took a really big dive. So she started getting treatment, and we continued to look for solutions for what is really a chronic condition. The biggest thing, though, in January, in addition to being a lot more laid up, requiring additional care and help, is that her doctor demanded that she quit her job, which was very physical in nature. So that meant that I needed to kind of pick up the slack, both financially and in other ways, and that meant that any kind of personal art or personal projects, especially this comic, were firmly on the back burner, right? Anything that didn't immediately help us financially really wasn't our concern because we were in crisis mode. I took on a lot of extra work in those next few months, a lot of it not in the field that I'd prefer for it to be in, because that didn't matter at this point, right? So things were not good at all. They were very rough for us for the better part of this year. And it's a little bit frustrating because people don't understand that when they hear that she isn't well, they'll just say like, oh, hope she feels better, like everything is gonna go away. Like, for example, I've had a cold for the last 2 weeks and it put me out of commission, but I had full confidence during that whole period that I would get better. That's not really been the position that she's been in, and so it's really just taking everything a day at a time. Trying to explain that to people is a little exhausting, and I was also at a point at this point in the year, and still kind of struggling with it a little bit, where I was very overextended doing all of this work, but also trying to put stuff out online, like these videos, which are ultimately meant to be helpful to other people. And in a position of existing to help others, right? Where people are constantly asking something of you, especially when it's people, you know, online or that you don't know, or people asking for free help, when you're the one who needs help just this one time, it's easy to burn out doing that. And I think I was burnt out at several points during this year. Moving forward in time, February and March, again, not much progress on the comic front because we're in crisis mode. But when I do get a spare moment here and there to work on the comic, something is really bothering me. And I've done enough projects like this in the past where I can tell the difference in myself between just being lazy and resistant and needing to buckle down and just do the work, and there being an underlying problem and needing to address it. April, May, June, again, drastically reduced time. I am trying to make progress rendering these pages, and I've been removed from the project enough that I can realize that the story just isn't compelling. I've had problems in the past with trying to include too much into a story, but in this case, it was a problem of, from a storytelling standpoint, not enough being said or at stake. The character, the themes, the elements of it just weren't that compelling to me at all. And I realized that I was putting off a lot of the good stuff, the meat, the stuff that I felt like was really exciting about the character for a future installment, right? Like a part 2. And there's this thing that Mark and I have talked about before that's like this game developer is being interviewed, and the interviewer asks him, what's your favorite moment in this game that's being released? And he goes, well, I'm thinking ahead because this is really a trilogy, and my favorite moment really doesn't come until part 3. And like, I get that on a certain level, but also you're like, why make the first one, right? Why should I be interested in the first part? And so for this to be like the only personal project I'm able to eke out, that I'm just fighting to get out, it can't be filler, right? It can't be a buffer at this point. I had to really care about this story. So I sat down with my wife, who's an excellent storyteller, and tried to work things out, ran through the story, and I made a bargain basically with myself where I said, I want to keep Parcel, I want to keep this character, and I want to keep these 2 elements. And everything else I'm willing to throw away. I'm willing to kill my darlings, right? Not really be precious with anything that I'd already made, not worrying about the sunk cost of the almost finished comic that I have, right? And just what makes for the best story. I moved some things around, some things that were at the end of the old version are in the beginning or middle of the new version, and things are just really tight. Like, I'm really excited about this story. I know that it can't be perfect, but it's by far the best story that I've ever been able to tell, and I'm really proud of that. Moving forward to July and August, I got a lot better at managing my time. That's kind of a whole nother ball of wax and some mental health gymnastics, but basically I learned to be surgical with my time. I'm a 26-year-old with responsibilities, which means that my reality is a lot different than when I was 17 with no responsibilities. Like, there's limits and constraints on my time and energy, so I have to be smarter about them. This is like nowhere near the full extent of it, but just as like an anecdotal little thing. If I worked a long day and then try to start drawing at 10:30 or 11 at night, I don't have the energy to do that. And so the work is going to suffer. It's not going to be at 100%. So anyway, a lot of that stuff I'll probably talk about in another video, but comic progress went really well during this time. At this point, I've started completely over, right? I've tweaked the character designs to better fit this story. I have a new script and new thumbnails. September and October was the bulk of the pencils, again, the first version of the final art, right? November was penciling and rendering, and that brings us up into now, which is mid-December. So, after so long of saying it's coming, and not being able to say any more than that, I can finally tell you, jubilantly, that Parcel Stitch in Time will be released on January 21st, 2019. There will be a digital version. There will be a physical version. There's some other goodies that I'm cooking up to go alongside of those. I'll be able to tell you more about that stuff as we get closer to that time, but overall I'm just so excited. I'm so excited! So does it really take a year to make a comic? Well, I think more accurately, our past year was an incredibly difficult year to extract a comic from. And considering how much I really restarted the process over the summer, 5 or 6 months isn't that long a period of time. A lot of it has to do with the pressure of announcing publicly to you guys that this thing is coming and that I'm working on it, and then not being able to deliver and being accountable to that. Hey, I got a new print. It's the... I don't know what that's doing to the audio. It's the Super Nice Bros. It's a collection of contenders from the Smash Brothers series all being super nice with each other. It's 11 by 19 and you can get it in a link in the description below. I hate to ask you this, but if you could leave a like on this video if it helped you or entertained you, or if you're just a fan of my work in general, it does help these videos a lot. And if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, it's a great way to know when new videos are made available, which is every week here on Character Design Forge. If you'd like to support me in this channel, you can go to patreon.com/bageldenizen and get a ton of things in return, including a personalized video critique of your work, or even a discount on this print, or even the whole print for free. Still not sure what I'm doing to my audio. My Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch are all Bagel Denizen, and you can see them in the end card. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun creating.